Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Cynical Writer. Now before we get started, I would just like to remind everyone that the best way to support this channel is to purchase my books, and I've left a link in the description section in case you're interested. Now today I would like to talk about big words and my fascination with big words. Now first of all, we must first define what a big word is. Now, some people might think a big word is a word that a lot of people just aren't familiar with, that's obscure, and that's one definition, but I also think it can mean a word that is sophisticated, or a word that isn't heard as commonly in everyday speech. And there are varying degrees of this. I think there are a tier of words to the smallest of words to the biggest of words. And to give you an example, let's say you want to describe someone as being attractive. That is your goal. Well, I think the smallest word, or one of the smallest words for that, would be a word like pretty, which I tend to not use the word pretty very much unless now sometimes a character may, I'm talking about in my writing, a character may say it, but I tend to not use it in description because I think that in terms of describing someone as attractive, pretty is like the very least of those words. Okay, then a little up from that is a word like beautiful, which is very common. You hear people use the word beautiful a lot, but I think beautiful is stronger than pretty. It has pretty could mean something like the girl next door, whereas beautiful, I think, has a more visually concrete context to it. Okay, so now most people, their vocabulary, if they want to describe someone as attractive, it consists of pretty and beautiful. And but if you were to move up from that, you would have a word like radiant, which is a word that I like a lot because it's a little more unique than beautiful, but you're also not going to alienate or isolate people by using the word. So I think radiant is a very good word to use. Of course, radiant means usually beautiful in a way that's shining bright. And in actuality, one of the reasons why I'm attached to the word radiant is because I was at this a few years ago in 2021. I was at this convention in this horror, well, kind of a fantasy / horror convention in Louisville, Kentucky, and I met this woman named Marta Kristen, who was starred in played who was in Lost in Space, and as one of the Robinsons, Judy Robinson, and anyway. I remember that I didn't really know. I wasn't as familiar with the show when I met her because my dad really wanted to meet her. So, but then I just said something like, she had photographs on the table, and I said, "You look very radiant in that photograph." And she said, "Thanks for calling me radiant," and she seemed to be very pleased with that. So I kind of have a special attachment to the word radiant for that reason. But if you want to move up from radiant, then you might get a word like beauteous. Now, a lot of people can kind of infer what that means from the word beau, but beauteous is a more poetic or sophisticated way of saying beautiful, and Shakespeare uses the word beauteous quite a lot. I actually believe beauteous might be Shakespeare's favorite word. He uses it so much. For example, in Romeo and Juliet, he says, Juliet says that our love will bud into a beauteous flower, or something to that effect. And but I like the word beauteous because it's a more, I think, sophisticated way of saying beautiful, and it's the kind of thing that captures your attention. If someone says the word beautiful, they'll think, people often will think nothing of it, but beauteous has a uniqueness to it that I think captures the ear. And of course, then you have a word like resplendent, which is basically which is very close to radiant in meaning. Although which resplendent basically means beautiful in a way that is shining bright. And of course, resplendent kind of has a more sophisticated ring to it, because it usually means beautiful in a way that's shining bright, and also beautiful in a sophisticated way as well. And you'll often find in book, Charles Dickens and Herman Melville will use that word when they're trying. I think they use that word when they're trying to look for a word that is stronger than beautiful, that has a more sophisticated, a more elegant ring to it. And such writers in the 19th century often turn to the word resplendent to describe either a resplendent morning or a resplendent sunset or a resplendent person. And resplendent has definitely become one of my favorite words, of course. And then you can have a word like Venus, which Venus is not a very common word at all. But Venus basically means, if you describe someone as being Venus, then that basically means beautiful, like the goddess Venus. Like the goddess Venus. And so Venus, I would say, is probably the very top in terms of big, sophisticated words for beautiful. And then you have pretty down at the very bottom. And but of course, there are other words that don't quite mean beautiful, but can often be used, to infer that. For example, you especially words that have to do with lighting. For example, you could have a word like effulgent, which can be difficult to say. Sometimes I say evulgent, but it's actually effulgent, which basically has to do with shining bright in an elegant, sophisticated way. Or there are words that describe, let's say, the energy of someone. For example, like vivacious, effervescent, ebullient, and again, these are all or words like pearlescent. Or there are some words, for example, that you can even in some cases, if you want to sound very erudite, you could try to make up a word that sounds like a real word, but is not actually a word, at least in terms of the dictionary. Like, I came up with the word budescent, which basically means beautiful in a way that is shining bright. Now, it sounds so natural, it sounds like a word. It actually isn't. I think I came up with it, but writers, throughout history have made up words. In terms of Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, I think, made up the word fluffy. And there are so many words that and I think I can claim budescent as being my own word, even though you can't copyright or trademark a word. In fact, when I made a video about the word budescent, a few days later, some people created some kind of website, YouTube channel, a beauty service called Budescent. I'm thinking, is that a coincidence? Because that wasn't on there before I made that video, so I don't know. But again, I try as much as possible, again, because any word that you use to describe someone as attractive that isn't pretty or beautiful, I think will stand out as being elegant and unique. Because and I think one of the things that makes big words so fascinating is the fact that the more complex a word is, the more your brain has to process it and struggle with it, and the more the more you do that, the more your mind does that, the more that will translate into providing a stronger or more vivid image. At least that's how it works with me, is that the more unique the word and the more I have to, or the more sophisticated sounding the word, the more I have to process it and process the meaning and the implications of said word, and therefore that will ultimately lead to a stronger, more vivid image, at least with me. And that's why I love big words, because they provide again a poetic resonance that I find to be very fulfilling and rewarding, and they nourish your mind, so to speak. Big words nourish your mind and nourish your soul in a way that smaller words simply can't. And that's why I don't think that people should disparage writers who use big words, because ultimately writers love experimenting with language, playing with language, using different kinds of words, not just big words but small words. And so as a writer, I love experimenting and again playing with language, and because I feel, because I love the journey, the exploration, the experimenting with new way, not just new words, but new ways to phrase things, new ways to use words that I've used before. And I love the process much more, and the technique much more than even the story. Even though to me, yes, story is important. It is vastly important. But to me, the story is is the foundation for the language to flourish. So the story may be the seed, but then the flower and the garden, that's the words, that's the language. So that's an integral and inseparable part of writing to me. So yes, words are very important. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. Next week, or hopefully, I will return with another topic. Again, it takes a long time and a lot of effort to record these videos, and again, I hope you will check out my books in the description section. And until next time, goodbye.